Hi, my name is Philip Robichaux and I'm a member of the Philosophy Department at Delft University of Technology. In this lecture I'll be discussing the problem of collective action, which is sometimes called the tragedy of the commons. In the lecture you will learn what a collective action problem is and what conditions bring them about. You will also learn how collective action problems can be addressed. Our focus in this lecture will be an example of the tragedy of the commons as it's found in overfishing. Imagine that a seaside village relies on fishing for its economic livelihood. As it happens, each fishing boat in the village must compete with the other fishing boats to bring in a catch. Because of this competition and demand for fish, there's overfishing, and this leads to the stock of fish being depleted. The commons in this version of the tragedy of the commons refers to the natural stock of fish in the sea. But what's the tragedy? Well, the tragedy has to do with the way this overfishing comes about, namely by the individual fishers acting on their own rational self-interest. It is most important to notice that it is in the individual rational self-interest of a given fishing boat, let's call it boat A, to continue to catch as many fish as it can. This is because if boat A leaves some uncaught fish, it will make less money, and the competition, namely boats B, C, or D, will catch the fish uncaught by boat A. This shows that there is simply nothing to be gained, and indeed only something to lose, namely profit, by catching fewer than the maximum amount boat A can catch. Thus, it is in boat A's rational self-interest to do this. Importantly, this reasoning also holds for all the other boats, boats B, C, and D. So for every boat considered individually, it is in its rational self-interest to catch as many fish as it can. When each boat acts in its individual rational self-interest, the common stock of fish is depleted. And this is the tragedy. The effect of individually rational acts is actually in no one's interest. The community's interests are set back because they are losing an important foodstuff and their economy will struggle. In addition, the boat owners' interests are set back because they're losing their livelihood. Given these effects of depleting the fish stock, it is clear that when taken as a collective, the fishers' individual actions are irrational. Individually rational actions can thus be collectively irrational. The solution to the tragedy of the commons is to cooperate. Rather than trying to catch as many fish as they can, individual fishers should practice sustainable fishing. Sustainable fishing means taking only that amount of fish from the ocean that is consistent with the continued health of the fish stock. This would require fishers to catch fewer fish than their maximum. And this means that individual fishers would have to leave fish in the ocean even when they're fully capable of catching them. One means of realizing sustainable fishing is a cooperative scheme such as a fishing quota scheme. This scheme limits the size of the catch for each boat. In order for this to work, the community, together with the boat owners, must agree to it. That is, they must come together to establish the quota of fish that's consistent with sustainable fishing, and they must agree to stick to it. But you might be wondering, why would any individual stick to this scheme? Think back to individual self-interest and focus on boat A. If all the other boats comply with the quota scheme, then it's in boat A's rational self-interest to fish more than the quota. This is called free riding. And this same reasoning would apply to the other boats as well. So although the point of the cooperative scheme was to avoid depleting the common stock of fish, it would actually be undermined by individual rational self-interest. So even though it is collectively rational for all the boats to stick to the quota, individual rationality would recommend free riding. So what options are there for getting individuals to stick to the quota scheme? What would actually motivate cooperation in this case? Something that might motivate individual fishers is morality. But what moral considerations might there be in this context? Well, there seem to be several. First, individuals might see as a moral reason for sticking to the quota the fact that sustaining the stock of fish is a shared and desirable end or goal. Second, the fishers know that the quota is the means to this shared and desirable end. Fishers may be motivated to take the necessary means to the shared, valuable end of sustaining the commons. Third, and finally, fishers may be motivated by the fairness of the cooperative scheme. If it is designed in a way that does sustain the stock of fish, and if the quotas don't favor some fishers over others, then the system seems fair. So even if individual rationality suggests free riding, fishers who are motivated by the morality of the quota system will stick to it. Notice, however, that though moral motivation may be necessary, it's not sufficient for realizing sustainable fishing. This is because we simply can't count on everyone to be motivated by moral considerations. Many will only do what they morally should do if they're forced in some way to do it. So in order to make up for the lack of sufficient moral motivation, we can rely on enforcement. For the quota system to work, some significant degree of compliance must be achieved, and there are ways of enforcing compliance. For example, if the community authorizes maritime police to enforce the quota system, even those who aren't morally motivated may avoid free riding. This enforcement shifts the individual rational self-interest calculation for each boat through fines or penalties, such as the revocation of the license to fish. Unfortunately, though enforcement measures are also not sufficient. Given the sheer number of fishing boats and the area that they fish, it is practically impossible for the maritime police to ensure compliance. Moreover, the maritime police themselves, if acting on their own individual rational self-interest, may be lax on enforcement, either by taking bribes or simply by being lazy. So what is the solution to the tragedy of the commons? In the overfishing case, we propose that a cooperative scheme, like a fishing quota scheme, might be the best way to sustain the fishing stocks. Then we noted that some kind of enforcement is necessary, even if not sufficient, to making such a scheme work. Since we can't rely solely on enforcement, perhaps the solution lies in getting fishers and the maritime police to take the moral considerations seriously. Moral motivation, if successfully engendered in the fishers, perhaps by the community they are a part of, might, when combined with the enforcement, go a long way to making the cooperative scheme work. Making such moral considerations salient for the fishers, perhaps whenever they might be tempted to overfish, is an interesting design problem that responsible innovators should try to tackle. Now to conclude. In this lecture, we explored the tension between rational collective self-interest and individual self-interest, and we showed that it leads to certain collective action problems. We looked at cooperative schemes as a potential solution to such collective action problems. These schemes are the means to realize the individual interest that each person has in having a sustainable fishery. Taken together, we can say that cooperative schemes are the means to realizing the collective interest. We showed that such schemes must be enforced and that they should be morally justified if individual moral motivation is to stand a chance at helping dissuade free riding. I close by asking you to think about what kind of cooperative schemes could address other collective action problems that take the form of the tragedy of the commons. They can arise in the context of other shared resources such as rivers, atmosphere, and national parks. Thank you very much for your attention.